From Amsterdam and Holland and all across the world, you're watching New Reality News. U.S. President Donald J. Trump. There's nobody like him. Or is there? All across the globe, populist anti-immigration politicians have lifted their voices and captured the attention of the media and of many voters. Boris Johnson in the UK, Marine Le Pen in France, and Geert Wilders right here in the Netherlands. Holland has long been famous for its tolerance and its welcoming attitude toward immigrants. That's why it was so shocking for many to see Geert Wilders make a serious run to lead this nation. It was a brutal campaign with fiery rhetoric rarely seen in Dutch politics, but on election night Geert Wilders and his PW party fell far short of their goal of running the government, and at least for now, the Netherlands remains a beacon of hope and tolerance for people all across the world. I traveled to Holland during the election season and immediately after to ask the Dutch people what they thought of the campaign's language and the final results. I also wanted to find out what they thought of Donald Trump and if his shocking election in the United States somehow influenced how the Dutch people voted.
My name is Lex Mene and I live in Amsterdam. Nearly 61.
Okay. So the first question, we're talking about the Dutch elections, of course.
Yeah.
Did you vote in this election?
Yes.
Do you vote every time, or is this kind of unusual for you to go out and vote in this?
No, I vote every time.
Tell me why it was important for you to vote this time.
This time? Well, every time is important, of course. And so no particular reason actually this time.
So it's something you do all the time?
Yeah, I do it every time, yeah. Just using my democratic rights.
Absolutely. All right, so tell me, how big of a factor is immigration to you here in the Netherlands?
In the Netherlands, it's a growing concern, to be honest, yeah.
Growing concern for you?
Yeah.
What other issue is very important to you?
Other issues are the growth of Islam, which is gradually increasing. And to illustrate that, when I was at high school in the 70s, there was no talk about Islam at all. And now, about 50 years later, there are about 500 mosques in Holland alone, and Holland is a small country. You know what that means? That it's almost one new mosque each month, and I think that is a concern. Yeah.
When you said that immigration was a large factor for you, is that what you're talking about, or something different?
Because mostly it's Muslim immigrants. So the amount of Muslim people is growing, and the problem is that most of them do not integrate, and that brings problems with it.
Okay, so putting aside your personal preferences and who won and who lost, whether or not you're happy, do you feel like the campaign, the rhetoric in the campaign, the issues brought up in the campaign, the 27 campaign, do you think that was good for the country, or do you think it did harm for the country?
The rhetoric has been rather tough actually, and especially about immigration. But what has been good for the country is the last government that did economically very well. And so that was an issue for people to feel certain about.
So you think overall it was helpful to have the type of campaign, or do you think it kind of took the country into dark places you shouldn't have to? It's important to talk about those things? Or
it's very important. Okay. No, it's very important because it's been too long pushed under the carpet. So the people didn't talk about it at all. You know, it was even a politically incorrect to name the word radical Islam. You know, to take it into your mouth. So that was already a not done thing.
What did you think of Geert Wilders? Was he your preference, or do you think he's a good candidate?
I don't know about Geert Wilders, because he wants to take us out of the euro, and he wants to bring an exit, but I don't think that will be good. Holland is a very small country, you know, and we need Europe economically to keep the level of welfare. And Geert, he also wants to go back to the guilder, and that's totally unrealistic. So the only thing that he is realistic about is Islam, but economically it's nothing at all actually.
Do you think that's why he didn't finish as strongly as many people thought he would?
I don't know if you know it, but we had a political riot with Turkey, because a Turkish minister was expelled from Holland, and it caused a row, riots on the street, and I think that helped to secure Mark Rutte, the Prime Minister, and his party as the biggest party.
What would you say immigrants should understand about the political campaign that just finished here in Holland, and what do you think the immigrants could do to build goodwill and assimilate into the Netherlands so that this anxiety is not present?
They should integrate as soon as possible and learn the language as soon as possible. The problem is that it's only a very small percentage of them that is actually doing that, and most of them are given they're given money, they're given a house and food and clothing, and they're not used to that in their own country. So they say, "Oh, thank you very much," and live happily thereafter. You know, without having the need to learn the language and to integrate fully. So it's only a small percentage of them, and mostly there's the already educated people and more intelligent people that are actually integrating and having a good living after that. But the majority is staying behind in a big way actually. So they end up on the dole and don't even learn the language or have no chance for a job.
What was immigration like before this current?
Well, there has always been immigration, and immigration is not the problem on its own, because it's been there always. It's only that in the last couple of years it's been enormous, and it's been too many actually, and it's all over Europe, and it's for the system very difficult to cope with. Very difficult. And you talk about the police and the social service and housing. It's very, very difficult.
Okay, what is your opinion of Donald Trump, and has he changed your opinion of the United States?
Donald Trump. My goodness, who would have thought that he would be president? I would never have voted for him, because I've been into the climate thing for a long time, and it's very, very real. And he is denying this, and that's only for that he can count me out. So I read an article about him how you say that in English, agreeing about the pipeline going through the Indian country, and I think it could have been made around it as well, you know, and it shows a disrespect to their feelings and their opinions about their holy land and the planet actually. So and then all his tweets that go out, and he stirs up the waters and a lot of people were very worried about him over here in Europe. Very worried actually. And the only thing is that he does point to immigration as well and the growth of Islam, and in that respect I think he's got a point. I have to admit that, and because it's going on here for a while in Europe, and he's been reading about that, and he does have a point there. And by the way, it's already going as well in the United States as well, because I've seen videos on YouTube, for instance, about a place in Michigan called Dearborn, and I was shocked to see that how many Muslims are living there. It's completely Islamic, and I think this is a problem. So he was right to point the finger at that. But for the rest, it's.
Tell me, has his election changed your impression of the United States or the American people?
No. I think after 4 years it will change again, or maybe even earlier, you know, sooner.
Do you think Donald Trump had any influence on the election here in the Netherlands?
A bit, I would say yes, because after he was elected, Geert Wilders said this is a big relief, and so I think it did influence the elections. Yeah.
And you think it hurt Wilders, helped Wilders?
I think it helped him. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Last question. Give me one Dutch word that describes your mood for the political situation in the Netherlands now and in the future. A Dutch word.
A Dutch word. A Dutch word. Bezorgd.
And how does that translate?
Worried.
Anything else you'd like to add or mention?
I hope it works out well.
And so now we travel inside different parts of Amsterdam to get different people's opinions on what just happened in the general election. Great. Hello. Thank you so much. Could you tell me your name, please?
Thomas Meijer.
And do you live in Amsterdam?
Sort of.
Nearby a city?
No, it's for people like me, the housing situation is precarious.
And did you vote in the recent election
Yes.
here in the Netherlands?
I did.
Do you vote every time, or was it special this
I
time?
always voted.
Tell me why you voted this time. What was your most important issue?
Well, I always vote because I think it's, we can vote, so we do. But I was not voting because to steer away from the right-wing surge, as they call it. I vote because I think it's important to vote, but I don't have a strong faith in democracy in general.
Immigration was the big issue this year for you. How big of an issue is it in your mind?
A non-issue. It's totally, they have this beautiful statistics of that more people die of toddlers accidentally shooting their parents or refrigerators falling on people. So I think the fear of terrorism is totally blown up and used for ill political reasons, even though it's a very marginal problem. And I found it totally ridiculous that the climate was almost a non-issue in every issue, and also renovation of the economy and thinking about the steps that are necessary to really guard an economy against the rise of climate change and also economic precariousness, which is the effect of hyper-capitalism and neoliberalism, which I think is very problematic and also a non-issue or not used as an issue.
You think climate and the economy are more important than immigration? Do you think that's talked about less to try to hide it from people?
No, I think it's hidden because it's you can score less easily with it, because with economy it's a very difficult subject, because many vested interests are opposed to changing the economy because it will turn out bad for them, because they have been winning and exploiting a lot and externalizing the costs on the environment and ecosystems and third world nations, which are still exploited in a way for our economic well-being. And I think many big centrist, big political parties don't really address this because it's painful and it's difficult. You really need to show leadership, and it's very easy to point to immigrants and go all Dutch identity on the issue, but I think that's not really showing leadership at all.
It's not showing leadership. Do you think, even though it wasn't the most important issue, it was helpful to talk about this, or do you think it caused damage? Wilders and others who use.
Well, they're doing tremendous damage.
Tell me why you think it did damage and wasn't helpful.
Like Wilders or the right-wing thing, because a few politicians mentioned this, but the whole surge in immigration is partly caused by ecological damage in the third world. It's many places where people are flowing from, they have bad crops, and people are all going to the city, and that's fueling the political unrest, and that's also causing the mass immigration scene. But they don't want to address those issues, but now they use this issue as an excuse to go all fascist. In essence, many of the Wilders party has a fascist program, making Islam illegal, and that's all just very silly, I think.
Okay, turning to the United States, what did you think when Donald Trump was elected? Did it change your opinion of America, of the American people?
Well, I have nothing against American people, but the American politics has been fucked for a long time already. I was happy that I lived in the Netherlands because we have proportional representation. So that means small parties actually have a chance to get represented. And in the United States, you have just two big parties, which are actually a non-choice because there's no real fundamental difference about their economic policies. They're only symbolically different in sense of, oh, we accept gay people or not, or we're a bit more liberal. But fundamentally, they're identical, and they are serving the same vested interests, so there's no choice, so there's actually no real democracy. And in that sense, the Netherlands still has real representations, and small parties have the chance to get representation in politics, which I think is that. But in Americans electing Trump, well, that I think people cannot really look away anymore from the fact that something seriously politically wrong in that country, and that we're also afraid of the biggest superpower in the world now electing an ass clown who's totally okay with lying and calling it alternative facts, which is just totally insane. And I think it's very troubling that people vote for someone like that. It just tells you something very troubling about the spirit of a people.
Great. So let me ask you another question. As far as with Trump and the American people, do you think that his election affected people's minds here when they went and had your own election in March? Do you think people were considering what happened in the United States?
I think they did.
And how did it affect the way people thought?
Well, I cannot talk for them because I already have very difficulty understanding like how these people think by even like being open to the idea of voting for Wilders, even though he's like his political program is total nonsense and even impossible in for our like constitution. Like many of his program points are actually illegal for our constitution, like the making illegal of a religion, which is he should erase the freedom of opinion. Even though he says he's like a warrior for the freedom of speech, he actually has to confine and remove the freedom of speech and able to ban the Islam, which is totally ridiculous. And I think more people voted than ever this year in the election because they were afraid of like the rise of the of Wilders. But so that's maybe a positive thing coming out of the Trump. Although ironically, I did hope Trump would win in the United States because that would show people that they cannot really accept this political system as it is anymore, because it can elect a totally dangerous and nefarious character into politics, and I think that's very troubling indeed.
The last question I ask everybody, if you could give me one word in Dutch that tells me your feelings for the future.
Verdeeld.
Which means?
Divided. I think many people are very, very divided, and many people are in the throng or in like because of the internet and the radicalization of the freedom of opinion, very bad opinions have the possibility to grab people in this filter bubble where they only listen and hear people who think like they do. And then you also have like people like Trump using very high-tech internet technology to micro-target bullshit to feed on the specific fears of an individual rather than mass communication in general. I think that's something very troubling right now, and you also see that in the Netherlands, because the people who I read yesterday in the NRC, half of the people who voted for Wilders, they believe that there was voter fraud. And on the election night, I was following multiple channels on the internet, and one of them was like the pro-Trump parts of Reddit. And there they were following the Wilders campaign, and they were shouting all the things about voter fraud because they didn't understand the electoral system of the Netherlands. And but you see that they like took over these points. So you see that the alt-right movement is in the same kind of spheres on the internet and supporting both Wilders and the new Thierry Baudet and some other people. And I think that's very troubling because they are in a filter bubble on the internet and don't really hear opposing views, or only like the strawman versions of people who oppose their views.
Very good. Any other thoughts?
A gazillion, but I think I'm very pessimistic about the capacity of humanity to get its shit together and actually work for the troubles that are ahead. Because like it's ridiculous that we have like a labor shortage or like unemployment, because there's a tremendous amount of work to be done. But the problem is that the vested interests are such that they want to not change because their power is dependent on the things being as they are. And the change, I think. People really need to wake up and take a hold of their political power in this. But I'm very pessimistic about this because of the whole filter bubble problem and people radicalizing almost everywhere.
What is your name?
My name is Veerle.
And did you vote in the recent election?
Yes, I did.
And tell me what issue was important for you to vote. Did you vote? Do you vote every time or just this time?
It was the first time I could vote because I'm only 22 years now. And I focused on the environment and animals. So I voted for the Party for the Animals.
What did you think about the issue of immigration that was brought up so much? Is that important to you?
I think it's important, but there was a party about discrimination, and they were very like, hoe zeg je fel? Yeah, they were like, hoe zei je? Yeah, really harsh with their program, so that didn't really fit with my personal opinions. Yeah.
So you didn't agree with Geert Wilders and that. Do you think it was important, the issues that he brought up, it was important to discuss, or do you think it just caused trouble?
Yeah, I think it's important to discuss because he says things that most Dutch people don't agree with. So I think it's important, but yeah, he also causes trouble with the things he says. Yeah.
Overall, was it good, the election, or the bad? Do you think it made things better or worse?
I think he spoke for a lot of people in Holland that share his opinion. So, yeah, I think it's worse that he got that much votes, actually. But yeah, I don't really know, actually.
With all the problems with the immigration that he brought up and many people feel, what would you suggest to new people arriving to the Netherlands, how they can adjust to the Netherlands, how they can assimilate, get along? What suggestions would you have to them when they move here to get along better?
Oh, yeah. I think they are doing really well, actually. So I don't really see it as a problem because I work with homeless people, and most of those people are from different countries also, and they already adjusted. They are Holland people. They belong to Holland. So yeah.
In the U.S., we elected Donald Trump. What did you think of that? Does that
Yeah.
make you think differently of America?
I think he's the Geert Wilders of America. Yeah. And he also gets a lot of attention with the things he says and his Twitter account. So, yeah, doesn't really. Yeah, I think because they voted for him, it's changing America maybe.
For better or worse?
Or worse.
Worse.
Yeah.
How worse?
I don't really know.
Do you think that after the people in the Netherlands saw that Donald Trump was elected, it made them think about their own election differently?
Yeah, I think so.
Tell me how.
I think they were scared that maybe he got a lot of votes, so most people voted like a strategy to not vote for him and vote differently, like the VVD party. I think most people voted for them because they were scared that Geert Wilders would get more votes.
So what one word tells me about your feelings, your mood for the future? A Dutch word, you know, if it's optimistic, worried or whatever, what one Dutch word sums up your feelings?
Yeah, I think optimistic, but also a little bit scared. But because he still got a lot of votes. So I don't know, for the next election, maybe he gets more votes.
Makes you worried?
Yeah, a little.